Yo, better in the light, it's the Krewe NFC, the roundtable where the real heads be. Talking NFL, the game we adore, but from the touchdowns to the legends, it's so much more. That fucking guy, he's got the stats on lock, dropping knowledge on the field, watching every block. Back and bleeding green, cheering loud and proud. In the sea of cheese, heads, he's standing out the crowd. I can't hear D with the looks and the smarts, breaking down the plays, and he does it with heart. Then it's out, solid like the line. His takes are heavy, his vision's divine. Week by week, we break the game down. From every big play to every new crown. Offense, defense, we cover it all. From the springtime drafts to the winner's last call. It's not just a podcast, it's a fan's lifeline. Connecting every moment from the vines to the side.
Again, you tried doing that? I didn't have the number.
Oh, my good Lord. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to the Krewe NFC Roundtable. I'm your host, Mike Sidoris, and with me are my fellow hosts, co-hosts, whatever you want to call this. I don't even know what to call them. Comedy Roadshow. I've got Eye Candy Andy on the bottom and Brian just to the side of me. Mr. Robinson, how we doing today?
I am doing terrific. I'm also playing tech supporter apparently too. So
Well,
you know,
we got
Fail.
the entry, the theme music says that thoughts are divine or something along those lines, and it's just not that. It's bad. I mean, what, 20 minutes now trying to come on?
yeah.
But anyway.
If it's anything other than put plug in hole.
How are we doing, gentlemen? We doing all right?
Mediocre at best.
It's been a while since we've all got on here and, I guess, what would you call it? Hashed it up, shot the shit, if you will. But,
and so I was actually mentioning, like, when I first got on and stuff like that, I said, and it had been a while. It's like, it reminds me just how hideous you guys are, and I'm the only pretty one in the bunch.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on, with the off season, but it's never really anything too exciting until we start training camp, and that all starts Father's Day week. So we'll probably do today's show. We're gonna, I don't know, debate some topics, if you will, and go from there. Not really going to touch much on what's going on in the camps with our teams, whatnot, because really they're just getting to know each other anyway. So
Gross.
We shut up, Andy. We started coming up with topics we could do for shows, and I was trying to think of something we haven't done before. It's been, I think we're going on 5 years now, right? So we've pretty much did all the fodder shows I could think of, and let's face it, I've been hitting the head a few too many times. So all I could come up with was if we all came up with our own all-pro team for our divisions, or I guess that's the best way to describe it is, just
Blame. Can somebody take over?
All pro, right? We do have a special guest that should be coming on a little bit here. Jared Tomich. I'm not sure it's how it's pronounced. He grew up in the region, so heard his name a lot growing up. Lake Central graduate, so he'll be on here shortly. He just messaged me, said he'll be on in a bit, so we'll talk to him, and then we'll get into the whole all-star teams, if you will. We can go start off with the NFC North since you're both here. You guys can debate each other, if you will, and then he'll come on. We'll give it a pause and get, his backstory on how he went from a Lake Central high school Indian to a Green Bay Packer. So, NFC North, gentlemen, what do you got?
Stuff and things. I don't know if you want to go first, or if you want me to go first.
Well, let's start with this
First,
Who do you guys have a quarterback? This is a big one. You got, 3 potential Hall of Famers in Green Bay. Then you got Punky QB, who's probably the most charismatic quarterback of all time. So who do you guys got at quarterback?
Actually, I got the perfect one, who is a 4-time NFL champion, 137 touchdowns, over 14,000 yards. He revolutionized the T formation. Coming in at number one. Number one in your hearts, number one in your program is Sid Luckman. Sid Luckman.
Come on.
He's smoking the stupid stuff again.
Already. I could have sworn to come with Jimmy or come on.
4-time
anyway
champion. Over 130 touchdowns.
There were 3 teams in the league.
There were 4. and still Tampa Bay was 0-12.
He had a bad year and he was in second place.
So anyway, Sid Luckman, he's actually the number 1 quarterback ever in the history of ever.
All right.
So let's go ahead and let's do the other quarterback.
Wait, Brian, you got a counterpoint on that one?
Oh God, really? Counterpoint?
Seriously, guys, we're gonna do this again.
Listen, come on, man. I mean, Sid Luckman, please. I mean, you might as well just, if you were gonna go in the Wayback Machine, you should have just said Bart Starr made yourself look intelligent.
I'd never heard of her.
So
he's trying to get on again, and I don't have the number. He's not giving the number.
Nobody knows what you guys are talking about.
He's not listening to me. Backstory. Stout's trying to hop onto this show, but I guarantee you he's not trying to log into the show platform. He's trying to log in to our email. That is what he's trying to do. And I keep telling him, log into StreamYard. But he doesn't listen. Anyways. Anyways, I went with as much as I could have went with Bart Starr on this one. I ended up going with Favre.
Ooh. No love for Aaron?
Brett Favre?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Sucks. Okay, so running back is actually kind of interesting because I got a twofer.
I would go with 2 at running back.
And of course, number 1, and it was kind of a toss-up for about half a second.
Is that when Barry Sanders flew past Walter Payton?
You are so lucky I'm not there in your presence.
Come on, man.
You have to know. And I'll tell you exactly why you're incorrect in your number 1, Walter Payton. 16,726 total yards. Second, there's some hack out in Dallas or wherever, the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, that kept playing until he got the record, and then he was ineffective because he didn't have an offensive line anywhere else. In fact, they should have gave that record to the offensive line. Anyway, Walter Payton, 110 total touchdowns, 9-time Pro Bowl, 1977 NFL MVP, and then, of course, runner-up would be the Barons himself. Barry Sanders, 15,269 yards, 99 touchdowns, 10-time Pro Bowl, granted, but literally 20 years later, 1997 NFL MVP.
Come on, man. I mean, Peyton's great. Probably a better athlete than Barry Sanders.
I'm sorry, when you started the debate, I stopped listening. You have to do more less of this or this.
Seriously. Walter Payton was probably the better athlete. However, you give Walter Payton the Lions offensive line, does he do the same thing?
Probably as much, if not better. Did you see the Bears offensive line in the 1970s and 80s? All up until 1985?
Okay, yeah, but he was given the ball 64 times a game.
And Barry Sanders wasn't?
Anyway, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, go.
Yeah,
Brian,
but
who do you have? Who do you have at RB1?
You think that this all-star guy was a good player. You think that any player on Tampa Bay would be in the league in any other team. No.
Anyway, so Brian, who do you have at RB1?
Well, obviously it's between those two, and to me, it's Walter Payton, hands down.
Okay, now my question for you is, what about Adrian Peterson?
Who?
Adrian Peterson's great, but I mean, you look at Barry Sanders and Walter Payton, and I don't think AP touches either of them. So
Adrian Peterson maybe a close number 4.
So who do you got at 3 then?
That's what I'm saying. He's close number 4. So Walter Payton can run the ball. He can throw the ball. He can catch the ball. He can defend the ball. He can drive the ball on a date. I mean, you name it, he can do it.
Anyway, my point is it's not that clean cut, dude.
It is.
Barry Sanders made a lot of people look Mike Stout. Stupid. No, nothing. Anyway.
Not at all.
Whereas Peyton was more, I don't know. Peyton could run you over. Not saying Barry couldn't, but Peyton was more prone to running you over than Barry was. But Barry relied on pure speed and ability.
Have you heard of Walter Payton?
I've never heard of her.
Do you even play? Have you even played football?
Oh, speaking of never playing football, Mike, how you doing, sir?
What's that?
45 minutes, really?
Don't start with me.
So we're debating right now. We're currently into the whole NFC North all-time team.
Was it all
Barry Sanders, Walter Payton right now? They both go Payton. I'm just saying it's not as clean cut as
it really is.
As they're trying to make it.
It really is. But we'll go to wide receiver. That's fine.
No tight ends. This is where you
want tight ends? I mean, I got a tight end for you. That's gross.
No,
but anyway, I got a tight end.
Just don't talk about tush push.
Anyway,
we took a serious left right there. But what we have at tight end is number 1 in your hearts, number 1 in your program, of course.
Mark Shimura.
The coach, the cup. So Mike Ditka, of course, 5-time Pro Bowler. He had over 5,800 yards, 43 touchdowns, first tight end to eclipse 1,000 yards in the season, and he was a 1961 Rookie of the Year.
Where is he Rookie of the Year at?
Your face. That's where.
Mike, any idea where Ditka was Rookie of the Year at?
So I want to hear Andy say it.
Chicago Bears. Doesn't matter.
No, he wasn't.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It's not NFC North. He played for the Cowboys.
Nope, doesn't matter.
It
wasn't until later.
He didn't even come close to making the top 5 in my list.
That wasn't until later. This is the guy who's got a list who took 45 minutes to get onto this show that would have taken anybody else 0.23 seconds.
The truth is, he was right. His list.
Listen to that.
The show. He's like, guys, I need the password. Wow.
I'm getting are you trying to punch in? Yes. What's the number?
Anyway. Brian, you got anyone other than Ditka?
Nope.
You got Ditka.
I actually agree with the Bear fan over there.
All right.
So now, if you want to move on to the wide receivers, here's where it gets kind of interesting. My number 2 is actually Johnny Morris, Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears. He bit over 5,000 rushing yards, 31 touchdowns. Bears leading receiver until 1999 because Walter Payton was averaging over 12,000 yards a play. And the 1963 NFL champion. However, my number 1, actually, for those of you who like, Optimus Prime and all those guys, is going to be Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, 11,619 total yards, 83 touchdowns, single season records. Yeah, 1,964 in 2012, a 6-time Pro Bowler, and I believe he actually might be one of the Hall of Famers next to Walter Payton and them.
Right on. Well, we're going to put a pin in that right now. We have a special guest coming on. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
All right. Question for you before we get into this. How do we pronounce your last name? Growing up, I was going to say, growing up, I heard it both ways. I heard Tomich and Tomich, and it wasn't until you got to Nebraska that I actually heard Tomich. Did you have to correct them going there?
A little bit, and the reason behind it. So, my grandfather, when he came over, had changed it, and I remember growing up, and because if you're from Croatia, Serbia, it was Tomich, and I guess it's a very popular name over there. And when Grandpa came over, he changed it, and I remember asking my dad when I was a kid, why do we pronounce it this way? And he said, because Grandpa did. Okay, that's good enough for me.
There you go.
real quick, welcome to the show, first time caller. Let me ask you this: how long did it take you to punch in to the show?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, about 30 seconds. Actually, pretty easily.
Not everybody here can say that. Ain't that right, Stout?
Yeah. Keep starting with it, dude.
So, I don't know if you guys know Jared's story. He's from the region. The region is basically the Indiana suburb of Chicago. And then you have parts of like Chicago Heights and that are included in the region. It's basically the steel mill area of the Midwest. Jared played and excelled at football at Lake Central High School, where he played for God, what was the coach's name?
Britton,
Elmer
Yep.
Britton. He's
Yep,
the winningest coach in Lake Central High School history. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And then you went on from there to play for Tommy Osborne.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Can you give us the comparison in coaching styles?
Oh, it's high school was good. I was fortunate enough to play and be a part of some good teams, especially like my junior year of high school was great. Going to college and the way that I did it, it was an honor to play for Coach Osborne. Is usually how I describe it. I was a Prop 48 walk-on, which they don't even have those programs anymore. Just meaning, coming out of high school, I had some learning disabilities, and I had some real kind of issues with school. And Nebraska and Coach Osborne had a great program with tutoring to help kids, kind of like myself, to get a foothold in how they learn. And then, he just really was an incredible motivator and inspirational to then be able to play for him for 4 years after that.
Your story is unbelievable to me. You went from being a Prop 48 and you actually earned your degree. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah.
Bachelor in Communications, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And when I tell, the kind of stories, especially about, back in Nebraska, Coach Osborne, he was so focused on creating good young men that, his philosophy was, the winning will come when you have the right, collaboration of kids and you really, you believe in them and you allow them to believe in themselves. Myself, I had no offers out of high school. I was an all-state player, but because of my grades, I didn't have anything. They called, and it was actually the East Chicago Central, which was a school that we played, the strength coach there, who sent the film to Nebraska and said, hey, take a look at this kid, because he used to be a strength coach there previously. So that's what kind of got the ball rolling for me, which was, just a really a much different path than most kids. I went out there, they said, I met with Coach Osborne and Coach McBride, who is the D coordinator. They they liked me. They said, there's something on film, but you got to come here for a year and get your grades up. We will help you with tutors. You can't have any association with the football team. We can't even give you a T-shirt. This is when things were really strict, in the NCAA. And so you had to, they said, you got to pay your own way, and we don't guarantee anything. So I was able to go out there. They put the time into me. My grades started improving. I really actually started enjoying school. Walked on the team the next year, and then was a red shirt for a year. And then after that, Coach Osborne, after that first red shirt year, granted me a full ride for the rest of my career there. And then I graduated in 4.5 years. Halfway through my senior year, got my degree, and which was the feather in Coach Osborne's cap for a lot of his players. That's really what he cared about. He said, when I got drafted, he goes, "Oh, that's great, but you're going to need your education." So he was always much more excited about us getting our degrees and our education. Awesome. So it was pretty neat.
So you said you had a learning disability. Was it ever diagnosed as anything, or they just left it as a broad?
Yeah, as a kid, it was the ADHD, which was they didn't know a whole lot about that back then. And to kind of begin with, luckily my parents never agreed to put me on any kind of medications or anything like that. When I got to Nebraska and they actually started doing some tutoring and testing, we basically discovered that I'm an audible learner. I don't do well like reading a book and seeing things. I do really well with listening. So it was cool because college, you go to your seminars, your professors are, giving seminars, and then they got, which was amazing back then because it was actually cassette tapes. They got all my books put on tape for me. And then I was able to go in and record all the seminars and things like that also. So once I started learning, figuring out that I was an audible learner and this is how I learned, it was great. And I actually, when I graduated, I graduated on the dean's list, which was pretty amazing to go from below a 2.0, in high school to the dean's list, with a full load and, playing ball. That was a lot. So it was awesome. It was, I couldn't have asked for anything more from the school. And that was one of the big reasons after my junior year, we were national champs, and I was fortunate to get All-American, and everybody was saying to leave. And I didn't even think about it because the school and coach had done so much for me. I was finishing my career there.
That's awesome. You're drafted, right? You're drafted by the New Orleans Saints, correct?
Yeah. Coach Dick actually drafted me in 97, the 39th pick overall, which was, growing up in this area, that was like, that couldn't have been any cooler.
Yeah. Andy, sit down. Calm down. He said Ditka, but you don't have to get all worked up over it.
I just got an alert from Google saying that somebody was trying to sign in again from Missouri. I'm dead serious.
Oh my God. So Andy's our Bears fan on the show. So anytime you hear anything Bears, he kind of goes haywire. But
nice.
I'm just trying to let everybody else know, at least educate them about the fact that everybody should be a Bears fan, because you got the most NFL Hall of Famers. You got, it's an iconic brand. They started the league. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very cool to play for Coach Ditka. That we had a great relationship. He and I had a different relationship because I was from this area. And so yeah, it was fun. Unfortunately in New Orleans we didn't win a whole lot, but we had a lot of fun.
Right on. Let me pause that because you're a Saint, so I gotta recluse myself on a lot of these comments that are coming into my head being a Bucs fan, but it is what it is. No, but seriously, you were minutes away from just hanging it all up from what I've read, that you were going to just become a mill rat like most people in the area. What made you decide that's not for me? I'm going to chase it still.
Yeah. And that's right. I mean, that really is, where I was heading. My pops, my dad was a maintenance mechanic in U.S. Steel. My uncle worked, at Inland Steel. Other family members. That's what you did. In this area, it was, that was a good occupation. And that's what my brother, my younger brother, does now. So it's a very popular, thing in our area to do. It was just, for me, it was just a lot of hard work. Some fortunate to have a very solid family that that was behind me the whole time, and encouraging me to kind of keep pushing, because there was times you absolutely you want to come home. Things aren't going well, and especially you're 500 miles away from home, and it's you're constantly questioning yourself, if you made the right decision, and how to keep pushing through. But I was just I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate because of the guys there at school that I met, the coaches. It was just I had a lot of help, getting me to the goals.
Right on. Anyone else have a question before I keep monopolizing the time here? Or?
Well, my question is, what did you pursue after football? Anything exciting?
I came back home after ball. So I was in New Orleans for 4 years. I did a short stint with the Cardinals, and then I went up to Green Bay for 2 years, and then finished with Coach Vermeil down in Kansas City. And so you start bouncing around in free agency, and it's kind of an odd time, because you don't really have a home, and you don't know what the next you don't know what the next day is going to bring, let alone the next season. So I kind of made this area, Northwest Indiana, home while I was in free agency, and then came back here. Kind of got in into small business and things when I got back, which was a horrible time to do that. This was right around 07, 08, and so I went through some small business in the area. Kind of took my lumps in some of those things, because I figured out very quickly it's business is not like sports. In sports, it was always, I can outwork everybody, and as long as I don't quit, I don't fail type of mentality, and that's not how it is in the business world. You can get your butt kicked, and a lot of it has to do with not having those mentors and coaches in that world, which is completely different. Nowadays, my wife and I, we have a couple companies. She has a great company in Hebron, called Mixed Design, and we do agritourism in the agricultural world, meaning kind of we help build kind of museums and things like that all over the United States in the ag world. So it's a very cool niche that we've done. We live down in Rensselaer, which is just a little bit further south. We have a farm down here. I have two great boys, 15 and 10. So very exciting time with them. And everything is great. I love the farm. That was my dream, to have a farm and to have cows and horses and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's what I do a lot of.
That's awesome. That's quite the journey, man. You went from being about to become a steel worker to going to Nebraska, seeing real big farms, and ending up running one of your own.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Here's my last real question on the whole football side of thing, and then, well, actually, I got two. The first one is, what's your most memorable game? Like, I've asked a lot of former players what their most memorable game was. I've had people go all the way back to Pop Warner or junior football, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And something happened in that game that just changed their life or changed their whole perspective on the sport. What's your greatest memory or greatest game?
Yeah, there's a couple different times. So in college, it was after that red shirt year, and it was actually the spring game. That after that red shirt year, we had you're going into that actually that first season that I could actually even step on the field, and it was that spring game, and I had a great game. I had like 2.5 sacks on the number ones, at that time. So, we're going as like the younger guys, you're going against the first teamers. Right. I had 2.5 sacks. I had a couple of tackles, and all of a sudden it was like, it started like clicking that, wow, I can do this. I can, I can play with these guys and be productive. So I remember that being a big thing, just confidence wise, and really just, kind of like projects you, and to believing in yourself and going that way. And then with college, it was, the national championship games there's nothing like them. I mean, not in college. You get to the pros and you have the Super Bowl, but in college, to be a part of 2 national championship teams and be in those games, both of them were incredible. We played and beat Miami in the first one, and then Florida, the Gators in the second game. So that next year, and to be a part of those, and kind of be a part of history like that was very cool. Guy can still remember and recall those games, and it's pretty neat too, because you actually get this, they're always running them on ESPN, on the channels and like, especially like with YouTube. I don't know who puts these videos and these old films together, like, but man, it's awesome because, now my kids actually believe me that I played,
That's awesome. So you got to go against the first teamers, got 2 sacks in that game. Was that Tommy Frazier?
Yes. Yep.
So we had chatted briefly on Messenger, and I posed a question: if Tommy Frazier were to play in this era of football, would he be a top 10 pick? Because in my opinion, Tommy Frazier was quite possibly one of the greatest athletes to play quarterback. Maybe Charlie Ward, but
yeah,
same ilk, right?
Yes. Yep.
I think he excels in this era.
If Tommy doesn't, get hurt, and he ended up with blood clots, just a fluke thing, condition that, he doesn't, even in our time, that he doesn't have that happen. And he actually plays his whole career in college. He had incredible stats but he was playing sporadically in between being hurt, and in college, he was by far one of the top players that I was ever around. And yeah, I mean, he was so versatile. He could have played in any era. He could have played today. He could have, and if he just stays healthy, which for all of us, that's half the battle. When you get into the, college and pros, it's like everybody's saying it's 50% just staying healthy. And for him, it was such a fluke thing with the blood clots. Yeah, he would have played. He would have had a pretty incredible career if all would have went well for him.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you answering my questions.
Where's everybody at from the crew?
Well, I'm still in Hobart. I traveled, played some ball. Nothing like you, but I traveled, went down south, worked down there, came back home, haven't left. It's something about the region that always just pulls you back, unfortunately.
It does. It does. It pulls you back. It's just at home. Yep.
Brian.
Yeah, I'm Valparaiso.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I'm down in Mooresville, Indiana, which is southwest, but I grew up in Griffith. I stayed there for about 30 years, and I had to get out. I got down to the country, and I got out.
Getting out of Griffith makes sense.
I kind of went to Rensselaer, but I moved down to Mooresville and got some acres down there. So that's where I stay at. Right now, I'm out. So I'm in Missouri right now with the baseball tournament with my youngest. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was our thing. I grew up in St. John, and 50 years ago, St. John was probably like where you live now, or, is kind of like Rensselaer was the closest, that we could kind of find like that, where it's just, nice, smaller, less trafficky, and, I've done all that. And so, yeah, no, I get it for sure.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in that general area too, and one of the towns he was talking about Chicago Heights there, back in the 80s, early mid 80s. But currently, I'm actually in Florida, beautiful Florida,
Oh, nice.
where it's about 110 degrees today.
Yeah, yeah. That's that humidity thing too. That's why I the different places that I lived, and played, and it was like I couldn't, after being in Louisiana for 4 years, I couldn't do the humidity thing anymore. Maybe when I'm a little bit older, we retired or whatever, maybe we'll run down that way.
And as long as you're here from November to about May, late May, there's no humidity, a little bit of heat, it's perfect. Nice,
Right.
gentle breeze, that kind of thing. But, right in the summertime, it don't mess around. Then, of course, you got hurricanes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's that too. Yeah. Right.
Right.
Well, just to switch, back to the your agritourism. You were talking about museums. Being a museum professional myself, I'm just kind of curious what kind of museums you guys are, involved with, and what aspect do you actually go with that and that.
Yeah. So we there's one real close to us here that we developed. It's probably been like 8-9 years ago, which kind of was the kickoff in that it was Fair Oaks Farms. Their dairy adventure and their pork adventure, my wife was designed and we built those two, right here in Fair Oaks, Indiana, which is 15-20 minutes from us, and that was really what got us into that niche. And then we have been, like, I literally just got home from Texas at about 2 a.m. this morning, where we were down, and we're currently doing the National Cotton Museum in Lubbock. We've done a lot of work in Waco with the Texas Farm Bureau. We're working on a project with the Georgia State Fair. We're doing a building with in Kansas with the Kansas State Fair, and we do brick and mortar. And then we also do mobile. So we'll build out these big 40-foot trailers or 30-foot trailers that they can take to their different fairs and things like that, and open up. And it's just all about educating the public. And specifically for us, it's a lot of children education, in kind of, making those connections between the farmers and the public. And whether that's, it's cool for us because we live on a small farm, so we get that. But we also do in the large farm, in that area more than anything, and just really kind of explaining the story of ag, for today's folks.
You ever dip your toes into other types of museums?
We no, not that we're not against it. It's like, but we're just doing so much in this area and it's been really good for us. And we also do some other things in branding, with the YMCAs nationally, where we build out some of their facilities and things like that. So there's a few other kind of caveats that we do also. But yeah, no, I mean, it's never the same thing twice. So it's a really cool business to be a part of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know with museums kind of evolving throughout the course of the 21st century, you're looking at more interactive things especially for kids, and immersive experiences and things of that nature. So, again, that's kind of the stuff that I'm kind of looking to do myself. With what my job is, and it's just fun, the fact that you can actually sit there and you walk in, you pick up a piece of history, and it just kind of and that makes your world go around. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was always a big history buff, and in those things too. So it's like, yeah, that's all. I love that stuff. No matter where we're, that's a lot of, like, when we go on vacations, things like that. It's a lot of what we're doing as a family, going to different places like that. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, and he's a huge history buff. If you've noticed, he's a Bears fan. So all they can talk about is 1985.
Yes.
You know what? That was almost funny. He'd probably been working on that for a while.
I was holding that joke for about 10 minutes.
That's about a quarter as long as it took Stout to get on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, 40 minutes. So going back to football, so I did have a question.
Sure.
When the year you graduated, got drafted, was that the year that Osborne retired, or was that the following year?
He retired the next year. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was I was I left my I was 97 draft class, and that 98 bowl game was their third championship.
Well, that's what we're going to get an argument about, because they just gave it to him because he retired. Michigan actually earned that one. So
Oh my
I
God!
guess you
There we go.
for that one. But I remember, I just couldn't remember if that was your senior year, if you left his senior year, or your senior year, if that's when he left, or if it was the year after. I couldn't
No,
pinpoint it. So
yeah, it was the year after my senior year. Unfortunately, it was the year that we entered the Big 12, and we lost to Texas in the Big 12 championship, and blew our chances for a three-peat on my watch, which I'm not bitter about at all. Still at 51 years old, but it was it was my full career. I lost 3 games my whole career at Nebraska, and that was one of
amazing.
them. Yeah,
That's
I can tell you each game that I lost. It was like that's how unbitter I am.
Right.
It sounds like the Texas one is a bad game to talk about then. So we'll just scoot past that one. So.
It is. We just, and they beat us. I mean, it was like there's no excuses, no nothing else. They came out, they had our number, and they did a great job. And they had some really good players that year. And so it was. But yeah, so it was to be there, and I wasn't a big fan of moving to the Big 12, and I was pretty vocal about that. Coach Osborne allowed me to be vocal about that. I thought when we went from the Big 8 to the Big 12 that you're taking decades of tradition and just flushing it away, with all the the big games and things like that. So.
Well, now they're in the Big 10 or whatever you want to call it now. I mean, it's
the Big 100, whatever. Yeah, I don't
Yeah. So, I mean, because I'm seeing the videos of people posting about the 97 between Nebraska and Michigan, and whoever makes the video, it depends who comes out the outcome of that year. So I find those old YouTube videos pretty interesting. So
no, there's always a bias to whoever's making them, type of thing.
Yeah.
That it would have been cool to have the playoffs back then. That would have been really neat. That was that part of the game nowadays is I do like that.
So before, go ahead, Andy. Do you have something?
I was just gonna say if there's any other questions, if there's anything you want to expand on or anything that's.
I actually had a question.
Uh-oh, there goes the Packers fan.
Oh, you shut up there, Bear fan. So obviously you did play up in Green Bay, and how, first of all, the experience of I'm assuming you were a Bears fan growing up, and
yes.
How was it playing for the rival team up at Lambeau?
You're right. I did grow up a Bears fan. My family grew up Bears fan. Well, I'll give a short story to kind of explain how that situation went. This is my 5th year in the league. My grandmother, who was my biggest fan in the world, she would literally at that point, listen to so much, sports radio, that she would call me and tell me, who was going, what players were going where, before I even knew. It was kind of funny. And I called her, she knew I was in free agency. I was going to a bunch of different teams. And when I called her and told her that I signed, and she, she's excited. Well, where are you, honey? I said, well, I'm up in Green Bay, Grams. And dead silence on the phone. It felt like about 15 minutes. I'm sure it was 15 seconds, but it felt like 15 minutes. And all I hear is, well, I'm happy for you, sweetie. And that was it. The Bears fans, they are true. But yeah, that was great. And Green Bay was actually a great place to play. It was a very neat time to play there. I had the opportunity. I lockered right next to Favre, and to have somebody like that on your team, it was a really cool culture to be a part of there. It wasn't like any other team that I'd played for in the NFL.
I was just going to say, because I know Sherman was the coach.
Yes.
I think that year you guys went 12-4, and then lost to Atlanta in the first round of the playoffs, and it was the first home loss ever, playoff loss ever for the Packers.
Yep.
Hey, Brian, why don't you kick him a little bit too?
Yeah.
Well, no, I just wanted to see. It had to have been like I remember that game, and I just remember my dad watching my dad just be like, I can't believe they lost a game at home. It's like it's never happened. And then I didn't believe him, and then of course I looked it up, and I'm like, man, you're right. And it just had to be just to be there in that stadium, and obviously being a player. That whole season, you guys like had aspirations of going to the Super Bowl and stuff like that. Because I mean, I'm looking at the roster; it's loaded, right?
Right.
And I mean, what was it like to play just alongside like a Favre, and then defensively, like KGB, Gilbert Brown, all those guys? How was that experience?
It was awesome. And I was at that point, so I'd gone from defensive end, my first 4 years or so in the league, to now playing tackle and nose guard during third downs. So Gilbert would go in, Gilbert, was a giant. He'd go in first, second down, and then I had the opportunity to pop in and then, get bounced around down there like a pinball, because I was, it was all speed for me, and just cause havoc and try to get to the quarterback. But it was a very cool defense to be a part of. It was a great team. They treat everybody really, really well there. And I really enjoyed the organization.
Awesome. Who was the toughest player you ever went up against?
Oh, that would probably be like in the NFL, Eric Williams from the Dallas Cowboys. By far, one of the meanest, largest, and toughest guys. He played the game different. He was just a mean guy. And that was, they had that offensive line for the Cowboys, those years. I don't think there was a guy almost every one of them was touching, 400 pounds. I know that the roster says no, that they were 350 or no, these guys were all, Nate Newton and those guys, they were just enormous. So they played tough, they played strong, but yeah, he was just one that you really had to keep one eye out on. There was no rest, even when you were running down the field, maybe after Emmitt Smith or, something like that. You had to keep your head on a swivel, because he was coming to get a piece. If he was going to run 15 yards, he was hitting somebody.
So
I'd like to thank you for that, because I've been trying to tell these guys about him for the longest time, that his career got cut short because of injuries, that he would have made the Hall of Fame first ballot, I think.
Yes.
Even when you have a guy like Larry Allen saying "whoa" when they're in the workout room, yeah, I've been trying to tell these three knuckleheads about him for years now. So
yes, and I went against some really good tackles in my career, and I went against one every day. One of the best, was Willie Roaf, who I went against Willie for 4 years every day, and we made each other better. But yeah, so I know what good offensive linemen are, and yeah, he was incredible.
So this episode, we were building our NFC Divisional All Pro teams. We had a debate, Barry Sanders or Walter Payton. Ooh. I want to ask you, having played in the NFC North briefly, who you putting in at running back one, Payton or Sanders?
Growing up as a Payton fan, and he was cut different, in his work ethic and things like that. Now being actually on the field and having Barry Sanders make you look like you're playing Pop Warner, I'd have to go with Barry, because he, at some point during the game, he's going to make you look silly, and make you like, there's NFL players, there's great NFL players, and then there's those couple of guys that are just above everybody else, and that was Barry. He was by far probably the greatest athlete that I ever played against. I can remember sitting in film still after the day after the game, and Coach Dicko rewinding the film, a lot, not just for me, but for a lot of guys. And he's asking, how did you miss him? And you're watching the film and you still don't understand how you missed him. It's just, he was so good. So I guess, for myself, I'd have to go with Barry just because he embarrassed me a few times. So yeah, I got to give that to Barry.
Right on. I'm with you when you're right. We're on the conversation there. That was great. You guys like that? How he agreed with me? Perfect timing. And it's just how it is. When you're right, you're right.
Everybody has their opinion. Stats don't lie.
Yeah, here we go.
Walter had more numbers. I'm just saying.
Anyway,
he did.
Jared, I appreciate your time. I'm sure all the guys appreciate your time. I don't want to keep you if you have somewhere you got to be. I know you're a busy man working the farm. That can't be an easy lifestyle. So definitely appreciate it.
Anytime. Yeah. Thanks for having me. You guys, need somebody to stand in, give me a holler. No problem.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome anytime you want to jump on, man. It's great hearing from you. Great hearing your experience. Being someone with ADHD means a lot to me to see that you actually fulfilled your dreams, and that having children with ADHD, I have someone that I can say, look, he did it. You can too. So I truly appreciate it. And I love your story.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You guys got anything for Jared?
No, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Go Bears.
We'll see you again, I'm sure.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. That was awesome. So
that was awesome.
We'll have to get back into this whole building our teams thing, because Andy took everyone's time up and no one else can go now. So
what I tell you last night, man. What I tell you last night.
I know. I know.
I know.
Well, just like I was texting Sidoris, I'm like, yeah, somebody's got to make another person's got to make an NFC North list, because it's going to be Bears heavy from Dum Dum down there. So
Dum Dum, listen, cheese boy. If by chance you were to look at the numbers, you would see that all of them were Bears.
What?
Why do you think they have the most Hall of Famers in history?
Because
they have to lead in something, right?
When you're playing against the same 11 guys for 3 years, it's going to happen.
What?
Yeah, 2 teams in the league when you won the championships. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and your team can go 0-7 and still make the playoffs. So,
and they did.
Whatever. And when you're in a division that weak, we're
going to talk about this for real. The NFC South isn't going to be a team that can compete with the NFC West. My honest opinion, they're not a team that could compete with the NFC East. Probably could, but the North, there's no chance. There's too much talent there. But we'll get into that, like I said, on another day.
They're not going to be able to compete if they actually start playing college teams either. You know that, right?
Anyway, we're probably not going to get into that next week, being Father's Day. Probably have no show Father's Day. We do have Ricky Reynolds lined up to come on the week after Father's Day. So, Mike, you have time to finish your homework. Just
I already did it.
Yeah,
I already did it.
And you are right.
The very last minute coming on, you did your homework. No, it was like, hey guys, I need the number.
He was doing his homework in that 40-minute span. He was trying to get on.
100%.
I did it last
That's
night.
what happened.
I did it last night when I was talking to Brian, and he knew it. So I got proof of messages.
Brian gave you the answers. He was like,
"No,
Randy White was good."
No, I have no. We had this discussion because he shared some things with me, and he called me a homer because I changed one of the safeties.
The answers. He shared the answers with you.
No, he did. I already had it written up.
Anyway, you just
send me the code, it wouldn't have been that bad. That's all you had to do. That's all
Isn't
you had
that
to
bad?
do. Submit code, but nobody wanted
all
to.
right. You gentlemen had some closing thoughts for today.
Please
Pretty
don't
much.
hire Mike Stout as your IT guy.
That's correct. Yeah, that's
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Once again, I'd like to thank Jared Tomich for coming on. Loved his story. Great. It's honestly inspirational for people that actually have children with learning disabilities. You can achieve anything you actually put your time and effort into. Once again, I'd like to thank our families, wives, for putting up with us, letting us do this for 1 hour a week and all the other nonsense we do throughout the week. You guys got anything for me?
I don't know.
Guess,
No, here
guess
we
we'll,
go. Jeez.
Guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've seen that coming. How does this computer stuff work? Anybody know how? Where's my Ralphie one?